there's nothing about this that is normal, right? I mean, the more general problem is that we're getting lulled into a sense of a new normal that is so aberrant, right? It's so unacceptable, or it should be so unacceptable to everyone. I mean, this is just should be just a completely nonpartisan feeling of revulsion that is coming over the country for what we're seeing here. I mean, just the behavior of ICE, the fact that you have, you know, masked and quite obviously poorly recruited and poorly trained people um, expressing a totally unprofessional level of belligerence to everyone in sight, right? I mean, this is not normal policing. I mean, it's not even close to even normal bad policing, right? I mean, so it's just how anyone has felt that this is defensible, right of center. I just it just boggles the mind. I mean, we're talking about people who were upset over the Twitter files. Just remember that, right? I mean, that was the level of Orwellian federal government overreach that had them fucking vomiting online, right? I mean, just the calls from Joe Biden when he's not in power, right? Just he's just got a presidential campaign, and he's calling Twitter to have naked photos of his son removed, and he's just asking, right? And this is the thing that gets the Matt Taibbis of the world just round the clock, 24/7. It's their entire career to chase this down. And now we have got thousands upon thousands of maniacs in the street breaking people's windows and hauling them out of their cars and throwing them on the pavement without any probable cause. And these can be immigrants, they can be citizens. They're using flashbang grenades on peaceful protesters. They're using people's kids as bargaining chips in negotiations to get people to surface from homes, and I mean, it's just the footage is awful, and but what is even more awful than the violence, the totally unwarranted violence we're seeing, is the government's response to the worst excesses of that violence when people react. So, I mean, the killing of Renee Good was, in my view, totally unjustified. I mean, we can dissect that a little more if you want, but um, the most shocking thing was the lies that came from the president and vice president and Kristi Noem, everyone on down immediately. Right, and they were not even, normal lies. I mean, they were impossible lies. They were lies being told when everyone could see what happened from 3 different sides. Uh, she's being described as a terrorist who tried to kill, ICE agents, right? I mean, that there's no way of looking at that footage to justify that claim. That was obvious from the beginning, and no one, I mean, these aren't errors. These aren't normal errors. No one corrects an error. No one apologizes. No one says, "Oh, yeah, so we had some initial reports. We got that wrong. Obviously, we got to investigate this." There's a sense of completely unprofessional contempt being expressed for half of American society. I mean, this is the framing of everything is that we have an enemy within, and we are now going to war against that enemy. And the enemy within is basically everyone who didn't vote for Trump and who isn't going to ratify his excesses at every turn. It's real. I mean, I mean, this is if you saw this happening in any other society, you could safely assume that those people were living under a dictatorship. I mean, there's no, this is not hyperbole. I mean, I'm not saying we live under a dictatorship, fully achieved at this point, but what we're seeing in the streets of Minneapolis and what we're seeing communicated from the Oval Office on down is fascist style governance, right? There's just no question about that.
Yeah, and according to Damon Linker's article, this Substack piece, which the main point was that whatever you think you're seeing in the media, it's worse. I mean, it seems like every quote said something to the effect of the media is just not it's just not conveying to you just how awful this is. And so whatever you just said and whatever you think we know, it's worse on the ground apparently.
Yeah, yeah. It's just it's hard to know what to do about it. I mean, obviously, I think people need to keep protesting. They should try to do that as safely as possible. So let's say the other side of this. Let's just bend over backwards to be charitable to ICE and the Trump regime. There's no question that some of what protesters do is unwise and illegal and almost certainly unnecessary to express their free speech opposition to what's happening. So, I mean, I'm sure there are maneuvers with people's cars blocking traffic, and it's still uncertain to me what Renee Good was doing that was illegal or not. But let's just price all of that in. Let's just say this is, to some degree, the fuck around and find out principle is operative. You shouldn't be doing dangerous, illegal things in order to protest. Okay, great. But what she clearly wasn't doing was trying to run over cops with her car. There was no reason to escalate this situation. This was not a situation that had to be violent, that was running off the rails. This was not, the ICE officers weren't being threatened by anyone. They came in so aggressively and were shouting contradictory commands. Um, whatever you think about the first shot, I still think that was unjustifiable. But even if you're going to bend over backwards and say, all right, this is an officer who perceived any movement of the car to be to be imperiling his life. I mean, first of all, moron that he is, he's walking in front of the car. If he actually thought he was in a hostile situation, why would you walk in front of a car like that? You simply wouldn't. I mean, this is bad training, bad recruitment.
Bad common sense.
But just leave that aside. And what is he doing with his phone? Right? He's making his own home movies of the situation. I mean, what are these ICE guys doing with their phones? I've heard that some of them are using facial recognition. I mean, maybe that's the case. That's also a little weird and dystopian if they're running around doing facial recognition on everybody. We should have a public conversation about that. But again, leave that aside. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. He found himself in front of somebody's car. It started moving. He thought, again, idiotically, that the best way to stop a moving car to keep yourself safe from it is to shoot the driver at close range. I can't imagine any training suggests that's the case. But in any case, within a second, he was to the side of the car, not at all in harm's way, and then delivered two more shots to Renee Good, and kind of ensuring that she was dead. The purpose of those shots were not self-defense. This is not a fleeing fugitive who has, several murders on her record, and she's a threat to the public, right? So it's just there's nothing about this that makes sense from a law enforcement point of view, and yet you have people defend. I mean, forget about all the liars and maniacs who are calling her a terrorist Trump said the guy was in the hospital and lucky to be alive, right? Um, that's the level of communication, but forget about all that. There's still people right of center defending this as somehow a kind of normative policing, that we want our law enforcement to come in this hot, and if you simply don't obey them, you are you have fucked around sufficiently so as to lose your life, right? I mean, that's basically the center of narrative gravity over there. It's insane, and again, it's coming from people it's from the right, these people who get radicalized by every, or at least, heretofore got radicalized by every overreach of federal power, right? I mean, think of, Ruby Ridge that radicalized the entire, far right for a generation. Um, or Waco, right? I mean, this is what got Timothy McVeigh to blow up the federal building, right? It's like any intrusion of the feds, coming into our lives, and what the feds are doing now is stopping traffic randomly and hauling people out of cars who are just driving home from work and throwing them on the pavement, restraining them, and beating them up after they've been restrained, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's awful.
Do you think these videos, these horrifying videos, bode well for midterm elections for the Dems?
Well, I think, technically everything Trump is doing now bodes well, right? Because it's all quite unpopular, at least from the polls I've seen. The ICE operations are unpopular. The Greenland stuff is unpopular. So yeah, I
ACA
mean,
subsidies, yeah.
the tariffs are unpopular. I mean, it's hard to know what he thinks he's accomplishing from a political point of view with any of this.